Camera, don't fall off. Good morning, artists. Happy Monday. Hope you guys are still doing well and you're staying safe and healthy and washing your hands and covering your cough and all those other good and important things. So I'm starting just wanting to give you guys, it's a brand new week, just give you a little reminder of what you're working on. These are from different grade levels, so make sure you're getting the right one. If you're a little confused, if you don't see this in your packet with the right day, just make sure that you're checking that this is the one that you should be working on. So 5th grade this week is starting on doing some different faces. There's some information on here talking about how to set up faces, how they should look, just some quick tips. And you'll see me doing this as I'm working on doing my own kind of characters, especially this plus sign idea of splitting the face up. So I know it looks like a lot to read, but please read through it, get some ideas, and then you guys are going to be starting to work on doing faces. You've got pretty much 3 faces I want you to try doing every day. And do your best to try to get it to match as close as you can to each one. And then by the end of the week, you'll be looking at doing your, making your own picture of yourself, a self-portrait. So you're going to spend, it should be about an hour and a half. Split that up over a couple of days, or just do, do it all in one go if you're really feeling creative that day. So that's 5th grade. 6th grade, you got 2 different parts. The first part you're working on, because last week you were doing these smaller pictures of a still life. So this week you are working on a larger picture. So you get this nice big picture, little classroom picture, yay! And then you have a second page for you to actually do your picture on. So if you're working actually from the packet, you may want to tear this page out so that you can set it next to yourself and you can look at it as you're working on your packet. Otherwise, if you're doing this all online, you just have your picture up and you go for it. And that's for the first 2 days of this, so it's about 2 days that you're spending on this. And then you're getting into doing some mythical creatures, one of my favorite things to work on in drawing. And you've got a couple of creatures you're trying to draw every day. So starting off with a little still life, moving on into doing some creatures. 7th grade. You guys should still be working on the idea of doing those characters that we talked about before all of this happened, that you're creating a different character showing a different emotion. So you had some time to work on that previously. I had you doing faces last week. This week you're going to start continuing working on your characters. So put the name of your emotions, and you are working on doing kind of a character per page. Remember to color them. You're trying to get like a whole picture, a head to toe. Have a little fun with it. Any of you that have something like Disney Plus, go and watch Inside Out. That's kind of the inspiration for this whole project anyway. And then there's an extra page if you want to do an extra character, which I encourage you to do. 8th grade, you guys finished up doing your school picture, and a couple of you have sent me those already. I love seeing them. It's great. Then this week we're getting into our kind of Asia unit. Each of our classes has a focus. The 7th and 8th grade classes each have a focus they go to. And you guys, your focus is doing things from Japan. So you guys are starting off doing a yin-yang idea. There's a little picture of it up here. It's the idea of everything has kind of 2 sides. Everything has a light side and a dark side. But at the same time, you can't have one without the other. There's a mix that happens. On this page, you'll find a larger, kind of lighter outline, just to help you get started, so you can start doing your designs within that space, or go outside that space. You can, get creative and have a little fun with it. I strongly urge you to Google some different yin-yang artwork. There's some really cool stuff out there. Go beyond just doing 2 different colors. That's plain, that's boring. You would never get away with that in class, just to color the 2 sides in. I want you doing something fantastic and detailed. And I really wish I was able to bring the examples out for you guys that other students have done. But they have done ideas of you know, using comic books. So doing like a Batman and Robin idea. So having Batman on one side, or the Joker, sorry. So Batman and the Joker, and then having a little bit of each on each side. You can do things like one person did one year an ice skating idea because they were into doing ice skating. And on one side they had a female figure skater and the other side a male hockey player. And that was really cool because they were both relating to ice and being on the ice in sports, but then they kind of played off that yin-yang idea, the masculine and feminine, the ice skating versus the hockey, so very different types of sports, something that's an individual sport versus a team sport, very, and one that's, you know, different ways of scoring points. It was a very cool, large concept. So kind of play with some ideas of that, of, you know, and now's a good time to really think of that idea of two sides, that duality. I'm giving you pretty much the whole week to work on it, give you some time to make a plan, to do the drawing. I want you to do a really nice detailed drawing, and then a couple of days to actually do the coloring. If possible, if you have colored pencils, please use colored pencils. It's probably going to come out the best. You can do the most amount of detail. If you don't have colored pencils, markers, pens, crayons, whatever you have handy, go for it. So that is this week. I brought you guys a little show and tell today. So I kind of held on to a lot of my old artwork, and I eventually put it into this ginormous, well, this is one, into several ginormous binders. But I wanted to show you guys something old of mine. So I started really getting into cartooning and stuff in high school. And one of the first things I got into was a show called Sailor Moon. And this is a very, very old drawing that I had done of the two main characters from Sailor Moon. It was not very good. It was not good. Everything was super square and super flat. I did keep these though as a reminder of, you know, how I used to do. And then about a year later, here's something from about a year later. So you can even just see how big a difference a year can make, you know, between how the faces look, the expressions, even just starting to do things like backgrounds and attempting to do hands a little bit better. And then let's see if I've got something from a little bit further on. Here's a little further on. It's probably a couple months after that. Coming up much better. And then here was a fun one I did too. So really making some changes with the hands, with the positions, expressions, details, color. So just wanting you to see, you know, art is part talent, but it really is about practice. It's really about being able to spend some time, work on something, and improve yourself. So whatever your beginnings are, however ridiculous it looks, and keep in mind too, this is me in high school. So some of you I've seen been doing some work and you're already doing better than this, which is fantastic. But just the difference you can make within, you know, probably about 2 years between these two, maybe a little bit less. You can come so far if you just spend a little bit of time on something. Do what you can. I'm going to show you one more thing. Let me get these out of the way. I try to keep my book organized. Surprise, surprise that I like to organize things. But this is another thing I encourage for you guys, is to keep your stuff in a book. Hold on to your old stuff. You never know when you're going to want to go back and be like, oh yeah, I remember that. That's when I did a whole bunch of drawings in my family's basement, and I was using Sharpie and made the whole place stink of Sharpie. I still get a little bit nostalgic when I smell the Sharpie, because it reminds me of that time. And just the sometimes ridiculous things that I used to draw. Doing stuff in notebooks. The different phases when I got into when Ocarina of Time came out, and I'm like, I'm gonna do a Link comic. I'd actually start my own comics. Here's what I wanted to show you though. So this was back in college, and Dragon Ball Z was out, and I was actually able to stay in the morning to watch Dragon Ball early before I had to go to my classes. So I would go to class, and being one of those people who can't sit still, I would be drawing in my notebook while I was listening to our professor talk. And it actually helped me to be able to pay attention a little more, to keep my hands busy. So these are actually snippets from my old college sketchbooks of the art that I would do while I was like in the margins, and then I would take all my notes next to it. And it became almost like a diary of what happened today on Dragon Ball. Will Goku make it on time? Vegeta facing off against Gohan. Gohan standing up against, the bad guy. The character who got killed in the battle, or trapped, or surprised, or anything. So it was fun. I'm glad I kept some of these, just being able to look back at them now. So unless you guys pop on with any suggestions or things that you'd like to see, I was going to work on some more comic stuff, since a lot of you are going to be doing different faces and characters and whatnot throughout your time off. I wanted to show you guys. So this was a comic series that I started working on when I started actually teaching comics to students. So it's a series starring Miss S, the art teacher, based on real life, right? And her trying to teach various lessons. So this was a color lesson, and the students just not getting it. They didn't understand. And then moving through and doing all the different panels and trying to get the kids to pay attention. Ultimately, she has to pull out her magic paintbrush and do some magic on the class. And that would vary depending on what the lesson was. So this lesson about colors, she turned the kids all different colors. Lesson 2 was on drawing animal portraits. So giving the lesson, students not understanding, and then ultimately having to pull out her magic wand. And since it was about drawing animals, Miss S brings a whole bunch of animals into the classroom. Down here you see this becomes a reoccurring character. This little mouse ends up sticking around through the rest of the comics. He eventually gets a name too. You'll see that. Then it gets into the mythical creatures, and here was the point where I was doing so many of the comics that I wasn't able to quite finish them all, so I wasn't able to go back and do all of the coloring on them. So you'll see that they slowly start becoming just a black and white outlines. So again, teaching about mythical creatures. This time the kids are paying attention, except for a couple who don't understand. But this class, knowing what has happened to previous classes, tries to stop their friends from making the mistake of saying they don't understand. But it's too late! And the teacher pulls out her paintbrush and turns them all into mythical creatures. Happy ending. The next one was about doing proportions, which is talking about how the human body lines up from between how tall the head is versus how tall the body and everything is. And this got to the point where in teaching, when students started getting more into doing their social media and being on their phones, sneaking their headphones into class, and just generally not paying any kind of attention, they all go zombie. Our little mouse appears again. More magic happens, And this time she uses proportion against them. So things like the heads being too big, the arms being too short, the limbs being too long. Everything just generally not fitting the way it should. Then, of course, after doing so many years of doing comics, that became the next lesson. This got into students not only not paying attention, but just coming up with really crazy things. I had a class one year that they were like into Billy Mays. I don't know what happened. It was just a phase one year. Everyone loved Billy Mays and OxyClean. It must have become some kind of a meme on Twitter or on Instagram at the time. Kind of pre-Snapchat era. Definitely pre-TikTok. So this time, our mouse finally gets his name, Caravaggio, named after one of my favorite artists. And turns them all into a comic book, which goes on the shelf. We'll see if they're ready tomorrow. Then I altered this assignment. It used to be something I would do with my younger students. We would do comics in 6th grade, but then it just became something that it was a little bit tougher for them. So we started working on doing a more Asian style, Japanese style comic books. And now it goes backwards and everything is in black and white. And the students notice everything is backwards, so a little bit meta popping on the comic. Eventually commenting, well, this isn't Japan, we shouldn't be backwards. She goes, oh, so we need to be more Japanese. So I got to bring in my love of Japan here as well. Do a little Sailor Moon-esque superhero transformation, and everyone is speaking Japanese. Which has the side effect of causing the mouse to speak Japanese. So now the mouse can speak. Which has led to this comic not being about lessons. This is what I'm going to work on a little bit today. So this is the break time with Caravaggio the mouse, so he gets his own little episode. So this was something I started working on when the previous class was doing comics. And of course, spending my time helping everybody, it kind of slows it down for me to be able to work on it. So we're going to do a little bit of outlining and working on this project now. I appreciate quite a few of you have started sending me pictures of your assignments, which is great. I love seeing that you guys are doing some work. I did set up on Google Classroom a way for you guys to show me the stuff that you're doing outside of class. So if you're doing any of your own little projects, I know a couple of you have made your own comics in the past. So if you have any of those things, take some pictures, share it with the class, show us what it is you're working on. It's a good time for everyone to be creative. So I've actually thought about putting these comics, finding a place to put them online. I thought that might be fun. That's a distant goal, though. We shall see. If any of you guys know some of your friends that are into doing art and they just want to have a come over and do a hangout, please pass the link to this chat over to everyone. Any of your friends who are artists that are looking for someone to just sit and art with. Think of it like we're all sitting in class, each at our table, just doing projects together. You don't have to be following along with me. And of course, at any point, if you're having trouble with anything in the packet, or even just with your own stuff, if you have a question, an art type question you need help with, post it up. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can post it in the comments at YouTube. I'll add it to the stream the next day. If you're in the chat today, let me know. We're flexible. If I have to set this aside for a little bit and do a little demonstration, we're happy to do that. So this comic is actually the first in the series that is taking place at our Crestwood school, guys. All the other ones were at my previous building. You get little glimpses of my setup in the art room there. But this one I wanted to show a little bit more of the room, and it's definitely a little more recognizable as my new classroom. Size marker, this is the Micron pen. It's a 01. It's probably the one I like to use the most, just because it's really good for smaller details. But if you're working with something a little bit bigger, a bigger area, I've got the 505. And this is one I don't keep in class, but if you guys ever buy on your own, this is the 005, which is the super extremely tiny one. And that is for just your tiniest of details. Wait, I know that username. I'm glad you're able to log on and find me. Now I've got in the chat, Bobbin Works. Sound effects. That's fine. Right now, I kind of planned it out ahead of time, and I went through and I did a really tiny quick sketch and penciled it in, went in and did all of the words and stuff, and now I'm working on just doing the pen outlining, which is probably the more interesting part and probably the part that's easiest to see too online. I need to get a second lamp. Get these dark shadows on one side, but that's what we have to work with right now. Sorry guys, I keep turning things sideways. I'm so used to being just doing it when I'm doing my own stuff. I gotta be in teacher mode right now and try to keep everything even. Jeffrey, I don't know if you ever saw these comics. I'll have to show you them better later. When my 8th graders get into actually doing the comics, hopefully I'll have this one done and I can start working on a new one with them. The inspiration for the comics themselves, though, definitely they're all lessons that I teach. So doing the color wheel, doing animal portraits, doing proportion, those are all things that I do in class. I figure maybe if I'm sharing the comics with the students at some point, maybe some of the lessons will just kind of like seep into them because they're reading my comics. So even though this one is kind of the break time with my little mouse character, there's a little hint of the activity. So it's actually sneaking if they're talking about realistic hallway drawings and doing perspective, which is something that 8th graders were just starting to work on. And then the magic by the end does include the perspective idea. Writing word backwards is really strange. And we got that little panel done. And this is pretty good already. Definitely the best part about the Micron pen is being able to go in and erase. Though maybe I shouldn't do that because that causes everything to wiggle. And it looks like for you guys that there's an earthquake going on. So I'll save the erasing for another time. Of course, some of this is just winging it too, adding in letterings like that. It just takes practice. Now comes the tough part. Bell goes off, the classroom gets busy, students coming in, trying to create what look like poor little mousey running from all the different feet. I don't know, she sells, guys. Sorry. You can tell me what's popular, what logos to put on them. No, maybe no logos. Don't want to get copyrighted. We'll call them sketchies. That joke is too old now. What are those? Oh my goodness. I used to be so good at keeping up with the memes. Kid would say one day, I'd know everything about it by the next day. And that was great, because then they would, I say it was great, only because I then knew what they were talking about for that period of time. But it's so different now, because now everybody, it goes too fast. Everyone gets over their memes in like maybe a week. You can't keep up anymore. So on one hand, I could understand what are those, and I could be careful about saying the words, what are those? Because if you said it, you get 5 different kids in the classroom, what are those? And then you've lost control for the next few minutes. But now they move too quick. Everybody's doing the TikTok dances. And I used to be able to keep up with whatever the new line dance was, whether it was, it started with, essentially, Soldier Boy. That's probably way too old for most of my students at this point. But, that was popular for a good year or two. And then we had, what was it, Cha-Cha Slide, Cupid Hustle, Turbo Hustle, lots of hustles. What was that other one? Watch Me. The one that was Watch Me Whip, Watch Me Nay Nay. And that one was popular, but then everything just started happening too fast. It went from things like what are those being popular for probably a full year. The dab was popular for around that time. Again, for like a full year to a couple of months to now it's just gone. It's just gone in a couple of days. The next thing starts up. Oh my goodness. Harlem Shake. Playing that song at a school dance and just watching everybody flail around. Oh my gosh. That's what it's like now with the TikTok dances though. Is they're trying to like sneakily do them in your classroom. You notice the kids have suddenly stacked up a bunch of books in front, like have created a little wall of books. Number one, why are you bringing those books to our class? You've gotten all your friends stacking up all their stuff around, trying to hide your phone, and you're all looking at your books and doing a dance. You're not sneaky. You're not the first kids to try and hide your phones. No, from our rocking chair, it won't be about the Harlem Shake. It'll be about our live journals. Doing live journal before Facebook was cool. Facebook has lasted. They're doing... It's kind of amazing that they survived. What is that? Why is that pointed? That's silly. Pro tip, students. If you make a mistake with a line, just make the line a little bit thicker to hide it, and then you make the other lines a little bit thicker to match, and no one will ever know. They'll never know. Alright, I gotta do a little better sketching on this one. Pardon this turn sideways, but it's always better to try and draw hands that way for me. Hands was such a hard thing to get good at. It actually took in college, they told us we needed to do a study. Pick something that we weren't so good at and do several drawings of it. And I said, okay, I'm gonna do hands. So I did several pictures of different hands in different positions, figuring out that you could, since you're right-handed, it's hard to draw a right hand because you try to position it, whatever it is that you're doing, and then you have to stop and draw, and then you have to pose again, and then you have to stop and draw, and it just was ridiculous. So I figured you could just use your left hand, and I set up a mirror, and I would do whatever pose with my left hand, and it would be on the mirror, looking like a right hand. Tricks. Tricks, 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 tricks. Art's all about finding those tricks. There we go. Caravaggio got a little chubby for a picture. That's alright. Hi, Kenneth. Glad you made it again. Kenneth, are you still working? Have they closed things down for you yet? My sister and brother's work finally closed down for 2 weeks? 2 weeks. Oh, goodness. Hey, that means you don't have to use your vacation days. That's good. You're still working, Ken? Oh, I'm sorry. Stay safe. Wash your hands. I mean, on some level, it's understandable. We have to keep some things still going. But I know it can't be easy for you guys having to still go out there like that. But Ohio recently shut down everything, so we'll see. There's the parents of me in the comic. My new short hairstyle. That was the other fun thing about these comics is, depending on what time of the year it was, at what point I had last gotten a haircut, some of my comics have me with some longer hair, some of them have me with some really short hair. The evolution of my hairstyles. I've been trying to find something online you can do, Ken. Good. Good, good, good. pop out to the store the other day to pick up some groceries, because after we heard about Ohio, we said, yeah, I think it's time to just, really get those last few things that we really wanted to have. It was very quiet. Not quieter than I'm used to seeing the stores. People walking around with masks. There's one lady who was in charge of sanitizing all of the carts. She was pretty much just sitting there with her Clorox wipes, just wiping down the handles of the carts and handing them off to people as they came in. I thought that was pretty smart though too, because just, offering people the knowledge and the comfort that the store was doing what they could. I still wore my gloves the whole way, and then disinfected my gloves when I got home. Nothing of the nice rubber gloves or anything, just like my winter gloves. That's what you can do to protect yourself. That's the teacher talking. Blah, 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 blah. Back to the old Peanuts, Charlie Brown's comics. Old school people. Womp, 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 womp. I should be offended by that. People doing that for teachers. Teachers don't just go womp, womp. Alright, this part I might have to leave for the moment, because this is the part where I sneak students in. And I don't have my students in front of me to use as a reference, so let's see. We'll move on to the magic portion of our comic. Anyone else out there being creative right now? I want to see some of the stuff everyone's been working on. Keep seeing all those videos online of people like singing on their balconies, and I'm like, I would do that, but I don't think my neighbors would appreciate it. You guys who've had me in class, you know that I like to sing. I just don't sing that well. It wouldn't be the beautiful, heartwarming video clip with the lead opera singer singing for everybody. It'd be more like a chorus of angry cats. I'm sorry, I'm turning sideways again. Eventually I'd like to color this one. The only black and white one being the one that's the Japanese style one. I have to go back to some of the old ones and do those as well. Try to finish some of those up. I did scan them, so I thought it might be easier trying to do the coloring on the computer instead. But we'll see. And keep this. It goes a little faster to do it online. Do it not online. Do it digitally. And it's easier to keep the same kind of color scheme, but it's a little bit of a pain having to go back and trying to redraw the whole thing online. Especially the ones that I had already colored, because if I leave it black and white, it's easier for me to just scan it and then color it. The first ones were colored in because I wanted the kids to color them. And like I said, just kind of ran out of time to finish some of them. So I'm so busy working with the kids on theirs. And some lines. So since this comic kind of secret lesson was dealing with perspective, you get a little glimpse of it on the board behind our little mouse Caravaggio. So when you see this magic portion, there is what looks like the floor has opened up, and it's going to create a one-point perspective of all these kids falling down into this long, long perspective hole. Little secret lesson. Excuse me. I'm not sick, it was a tickle. Just a tickle, guys. Mistakes. Mistakes. So it's hard to talk while also writing the words that you are not saying. How is your art going, Ken? Doing a lot of commission work? I love that. I'd love to be able to have time to do that. I've got time now, I guess, but things are changing so often, you never know. know you do a lot of your stuff on the computer, right, Kenneth? Just find a way to not only do commissions, but to stream when you're doing that. A friend of mine does that. She'll do live stream with commissions, and people will ask her to do the artwork, and then she works on it online so they can kind of see the in process. But also, so other people might be interested, and then they jump on and request as well. Hey Mel, will you do me a favor?
Yes.
Will you find out how to write in Japanese, everyone's funny?
Everyone's funny?
Like, minna okashi?
Yeah. So that might also mean everyone's kind of weird.
Yes. That's the feeling I want. This is the mouse kind of making fun of the people in the class. I wrote it out in Romaji, but now I need the hiragana kanji. Caravaggio has the same sense of humor as Miss S in this story. Yeah, I hear you, Kenneth.
How do you want me to send it to you?
You just like write it down on something for me. Here's a little scrap paper. Now has some little leftover origami. Kenneth, do you have a Twitter maybe? I know some artists do pretty well putting their art up there and their commissions and whatnot up online that way. There's different communities and stuff for it. It's actually how my sister found. That's how you found their artist for doing your novel cover, right?
Yep.
It was on Twitter.
Specifically Portfolio Day.
Portfolio Day, is that a site?
The hashtag.
Hashtag Portfolio Day.
Every couple of months, someone starts the hashtag up.
That's Mina.
Minna.
Okashi.
Yeah, the first one is Minna. Okashi.
What are these? These look like little K's. Like that. What these are?
Yeah, wait, let me. It's more like, it's not joined in the middle. For the. No. Like. Oh, it's my hand!
Get your hands on that stream.
Can you see me? There's me. In the middle, like that.
Oh, okay. The bottom part's not attached.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I only have highlighters up here.
Got it. And then is this last part here supposed to be like 2E?
That's she and E.
Oh, she and E. She and E. She. What happened to my music? Did my music die?
Ran out.
Oh no. Video paused. Continue watching. YouTube, it's an hour-long video. I might not touch it for a while because it's a long video. Full of good music. We were watching somebody playing a game this morning, and it had like this really excellent kind of like 80s synthesizer beat, so we got that going. I don't want to turn up the music too loud though, because YouTube might not like it. Okay. Pencil first. This we did it in pencil first. There we go. Slow and nice and neat. Caravaggio is not going to get to speak too often in the comic just because I have to go and look up, figure out, number one, what's he saying? Number two, how do we translate that? Number three, how do we write that? He's a mouse though, he's a simple soul, so he won't have to do too much. There we go. Oh good, Kath, I'll hunt you up later on Twitter. What we'll do is we'll finish the pen on this, and then since the next step is doing erasing, we'll put that aside, and I can do that erasing later so I'm not causing earthquakes on my cam. We'll do something a little new. Caravaggio and denim. Oh yeah, depending on when this whole thing blows over, I want to do comics with them. I think I actually, let me peek again. I think I have the 8th graders at least starting that. They do have to do some anime faces and then start creating their own characters. So hopefully by the time we get back to everything, I'd like them to. It's a nice little project. Lets them get creative, make some stuff. Some of them can really get into it too, and they do some really interesting things. So, I'm gonna take a break on break time with Caravaggio. He's so cute. Technically episode 7 of my comic. We actually ended up having to cut our last comic a little short because we had a couple of snow days in there. Let's just draw something. What should we draw, guys? Should we make up a character? Let's have a little fun with something. So give you guys a chance to see how I normally will start off some kind of a drawing. We can hear that. Phone alerts. Actually, it was pretty bad first day of doing this. My phone rang like 2 or 3 different times, which was super loud since it's, coming right off of the recording that's right here. Boys are being a lot quieter today, though, without with the snow having come through. Nobody's walking outside like they were the last couple of days. So he doesn't have to shout social distancing at them. That's what we've decided that he's doing. He's sitting at the window barking, 6 feet, 6 feet at them. Keep away from the house, 6 feet. Hi, Wiley. Oh, actually, it's already 11. Where did that hour go, guys? I'll let you get a quick peek at what we're going to work on. I have a vague idea of what this is going to be right now, but did a picture of a girl reaching. I've done a few of those. I did a collage one that my mom has the original of and will never let me have it again. I had to settle with, she made a copy for me so I could have it in my classroom. I did a cartoonish character. It was also reaching. I love it. It's become my icon in a lot of different places. I don't know, I just like the feel of it. Alright. Already been on longer than intended, so as is tradition. Uh-oh, are they gonna start screaming?
Here comes the scream.
Alright, that's a good place to stop. Okay, so as always we have to end our stream. Let's go see what the dogs are doing. Hi, Wesker. Riley's going to go pick on him. Hey, come here. You say hi? Here's Wiley. Being a good boy. Wesker, you think I'm getting squirrels? Get ready.
Unleash.
Here they go. Out into the wilderness. Well done. All right, everyone stay safe, stay healthy, go make some art, send me pictures I want to see, and I'll be on again tomorrow at 10.